Well, Marko, we might get started. It is being recorded, so if anyone has missed the first few minutes, they can certainly watch it back on recording. So welcome, everyone. My name is Jacqui, and as I just mentioned, I'm the Relationship Manager based here at the College of Law in Queensland, and my colleague Marko is on screen with me. He's the Relationship Manager based in Victoria, and under the cloak of Zoom invisibility, it's a superpower we all wish we had, but Ellen, our PLT Marketing Manager, is online with us as well, and she's going to be managing all your questions, which you can pop in the chat box, and Ellen will answer you directly in the chat box as well. So let's get started. Thank you very much for joining us. We hope that you've had a fabulous week. It's one of our favourite weeks of the year, the College of Law Careers Academy. This is, I think, the second last session for the week. I think there's a work experience one coming later this afternoon, but we're wrapping up for the week. You will receive all of the recordings for the whole week within the next week or so, and you'll be able to catch up on any sessions that you missed. And of course, if you have any further questions about anything particularly to do with PLT, seeing as you are in this session, please feel free to contact us at the College of Law. Now, if you would like to connect directly with Marko and myself, we would absolutely love it if our phones were blowing up with LinkedIn requests. So there we are. There's also our email addresses and also our LinkedIn. So feel free to send us an email or connect with us on LinkedIn, and we can certainly, if you'd like to talk to us one-on-one, we can set up a time to chat to you directly. I'm happy to talk. Well, we're both happy to talk to any potential students. If you're in a state where we're not based and we need to get some state-specific answers for you, we can certainly get in touch with Ellen directly and assist you. So please do connect with us. We'd love to stay in touch and see how, watch where you go with your careers. So before we get started, I'd like to do an acknowledgement of country as we gather online for this presentation. We recognise that many of us are different lands of different traditional custodians. We would like to acknowledge all of the traditional custodians of the lands we are all present on today, and any Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people who are part of our audience today or watching the recording at a later date. We pay our respects to each of their elders, past, present and emerging. Welcome to everyone. So this afternoon, we're here to talk about practical legal training at the College of Law, often referred to as PLT, of course. So some of you are potentially just finished university, or you're in your last semester or your last year of university. Some of you might be in the middle of your degree, or some of you, and hopefully there are some first years. I love it when first years attend this presentation. It's never too early to gather this information. So no matter where you are in your degree, or if you've finished, you are working towards, or you've just completed building your boat. So of course, it's not enough just to have a law degree to call yourself a lawyer. However, it's certainly an essential part of being a lawyer. It's the first stage of the journey. So I love this analogy. At university, you're building the boat. So university is giving you the theoretical foundations and the knowledge that is essential for you as a lawyer working in the profession. So you definitely have to build the boat. But then you graduate from university and you move on to practical legal training at the College of Law, where we'll give you the practical tools for your daily practice. And so basically, we'll take that boat and teach you how to sail that boat. So we'll give you those practical skills that will build on top of the knowledge from university, and it will teach you how to be an entry-level lawyer, so that you can do that role with confidence and competence. Most of the learning that we'll do, and we're going to discuss that further, you're learning by doing. So it's really, really different from university. It's not learning the theory anymore. It's not learning the law. It's learning how to work within the law, how to apply the law, and how to actually be a lawyer. So you can go in on day one and hopefully know what you're doing with some confidence and competence. So it's practicing the law in a safe, secure environment where you can gain really valuable feedback and you can improve your skills. So as I mentioned before, you can't get a law degree and call yourself a lawyer. In fact, if you do so, no matter what state you are in, you will get yourself into a little bit of trouble. And Marko and I are here to keep you out of trouble. That's our number one goal. So you certainly do need that academic law degree, but then you need to add your practical legal training on top of it. So learning how to sail that boat, and that will give you a qualification called a graduate diploma of legal practice. So it's a second qualification you'll have on top of your law degree. You then, no matter what state you're in, you then need to prove yourself a fit and proper person, and you'll go through the admission board within your state or within the state that you want to practice in. You can certainly do PLT in one state, apply for admission in a second, like another state, if you happen to be moving. You'll do an admission ceremony to be admitted to the Supreme Court of the state in which you wish to practice. And that is a lovely ceremony where you stand up, someone will move your admission, and you'll take a couple of oaths and affirmations and then sign the solicitor's roll. You'll then receive a practicing certificate in due course from your admitting body, and then you are a lawyer, and you can change that on your email signature, on your business card, on your LinkedIn, on your resume, and you can say, yes, I am a lawyer. Your parents can boast that they have a son or a daughter who is a lawyer. So that's a very exciting day. You can then work call yourself a lawyer and work as a lawyer. You can certainly work in other legal roles or non-legal roles as well. So even if you're not directly working as a lawyer, it's certainly very beneficial and makes you more employable to have that string to your bow and to have that qualification where you can say, yes, I am qualified as a lawyer. If you wish to move further into the profession, for example, after some years, you might wish to become a barrister. In Queensland, it's a separate role, so you can't be a lawyer and a barrister at the same time. It's different in different states, but you usually will do a bar course or a qualification on top of the practical legal training, and then sign on to the role of being a barrister. But that's down the track. We're not here to talk about that. You can certainly contact your bar association in your state if you'd like further information, but we're here to talk about how do we get you from legal graduate, so graduate of a university with a law degree, through to that very important and exciting and celebratory day of your admission. So all that's standing in between you is your practical legal training and the admissions process. So let's talk about that. So recently, it's probably about a year ago now, we sat down with quite a lot of our graduates from the College of Law, and actually some graduates from other PLT courses as well. And we wanted to know why they chose the PLT provider that they did, what they really enjoyed about the course, what were the best bits, what needed to be improved, and we got lots of valuable information. But these were the 4 things that all of the people that they interviewed who have done the College of Law course kept saying over and over again in sort of different ways. And the number one thing that's really important to our students is flexibility. It needs to be a program that fits in with all the other things that you do with life. And I don't know about you, but every January, my New Year's resolution is to simplify my life. And every year I feel like it gets busier and more complicated. So that doesn't work. So we need to be able to find some sort of a balance where we have work, we have family, we have running our households, we have exercise, we have looking after our mental health, we have hobbies, and we have our practical legal training. And we need to be able to fit PLT in and around all the other things that you have on your plate. And we'll talk to you about how the College of Law can certainly fit in around all your other commitments, because we know you're super busy. It's also very important to our graduates that they gain the practical skills that they did through the College of Law Practical Legal Training Program. They said that we did focus on real-world tasks rather than old school theory. That's a direct quote from one of the people that we interviewed. And it is all about giving them that confidence to walk in to a graduate level job and be able to perform that job with confidence and competence. Of course, you are always learning. We are learning as lawyers throughout to the day you retire. You are learning something new every day, but obviously that learning curve is really, really steep in that first couple of years. And we should always be learning and growing, actually in all areas of life, but particularly in our work as a lawyer. So we actually practice doing mock matters and creating documents and doing the actual things that you will do as a lawyer. So it's not about writing essays about the theory of law. It's actually going, okay, you're acting for someone, and this is the matter. And these are the documents you've got to produce, and these are, the advice that you've got to formulate. But you're doing that in a safe environment where no one's going to jail, no one's losing their home, no one's losing their family, no one's going to be sued. So it's that safe environment. There's no consequences, and you can learn and grow. But Marko's going to talk about that further. They also talk about being set up for success from day one, to be career ready to hit the market. We've got lots of support throughout the college, your time with the College of Law, and actually after the College of Law as well. So we'll talk further about that. And they also like that the College of Law is a really trusted partner within the legal profession. So the College of Law only exists to train lawyers. We don't do undergraduate degrees. We do practical legal training. We do master's programs. We do mediation courses. We do the practice certificate courses. So we just only do what lawyers need for their qualifications and to remain current in the market. We're coming up 50 years to training lawyers. PLT's been around since around the 90s, but we've been training lawyers in some form since the early 70s. And we are entrusted by over 30 top law firms to train their graduates. So we actually are embedded within the graduate programs of many leading law firms across Australia. So those are really important relationships for us. So these are some of the, where there's lots more benefits that they pointed out about doing PLT at the College of Law, but those are kind of the top 4 that we thought that we would mention at this time. Now let's talk about flexibility. We're all busy people, and I know, and thank you for spending the time with us this afternoon. I know that you've probably got assignments due and family commitments and work. So thanks for sharing your time with us today, or sharing your time with us later on if it's not today. But flexibility is a really important thing for our students, and why a lot of people choose the College of Law. Now, you'll have to make a few decisions, because we don't just have a cookie cutter, one-stop shop, one thing fits everyone. You can actually pick and make some decisions as you're enrolling, and you can actually change it a little bit into the program as well. But the first thing is, would you like to do the program 100% online or in a blended format? So it's a bit of a mix of in person and also online. So if this was BC before COVID, if this presentation was, say, in 2019, in the olden days, just gosh, it seems like a long time ago, Marko and I would be saying to you, okay, so week 1, you come into the College of Law, or you go to one of our remote locations. So in Queensland, we would do week 1 in Cairns and Townsville and Rockhampton, Sunshine Coast, Gold Coast, and Toowoomba. There's a couple of other locations in Victoria and New South Wales as well. So you would find wherever was closest to you, and you would actually go front up to a classroom Monday to Friday, 9 to 5, and you would do our week 1 intensive workshops face-to-face, and then you would move online. Now, you can still do that option. It's just starting to return. In fact, in Brisbane, we've got an intake on the 29th of August, although it's a bit touch and go with numbers at the moment, so it may not go ahead. But there are options for you to do that week 1 face-to-face, and then you move into the rest of the program online. Or a lot of people are actually really loving staying online. So week 2 to the end of the course, depending on if you're part-time or full-time, is online. So you're working through materials, you're still in contact with your lecturer, you're producing all the documents that you're required to with the mock matters, submitting them, gaining feedback. and moving through the program like that. But week 1, you still have to do a week of face-to-face workshops, Monday to Friday, 9 to 5, but you're doing those via a Zoom classroom. So it's not like this where we can't see you and we're giving a little bit of a presentation. It's all the boxes on the screen, small groups with a lecturer, and it's still very interactive, and you'll still do group work. You'll go into rooms, Zoom rooms, and you'll come back out. Everyone discusses what they've learnt, and it's still very interactive, and that's the way that all the admitting boards require. So that's up to you, 100% online, or do you want to do that blended option? You, of course, can choose part-time or full-time, just like uni, really. Full-time is 15 weeks. So first week is face-to-face intensive workshops, and weeks 2 to 15 is online. You have sort of deadlines and things required every week, but you do that work when it fits you. So if it's after work, if it's during the day, if it's on the weekend, it's totally up to you when and where you do that rest of the work. Do it from the beach if you can get internet. But you need to be sort of meeting the deadlines every week. It's not like uni where you can leave it to the last minute, although I know none of you would do that. But you have, it's more like work. You've got requirements and deadlines every week. Part-time is 30 weeks. So important to point out that week 1 still full-time, Monday to Friday, 9 to 5. And then you do weeks 2 to 30 online in a part-time mode. So it's just basically at half the pace as the full-time. So that's up to you. We do have an option where you can do evening classes for that week 1. So most of the courses are during the day, Monday to Friday, 9 to 5, with week 1, either in person or online. However, we do have what we call our evening course, where we take week 1 and instead of doing Monday to Friday, 9 to 5, we carve it up into, I think it's about 16 workshops, and we schedule those a couple of times a week at 6 o'clock and just do a couple of, just sort of do a few workshops a night. In Queensland, that's Tuesday and Thursday nights, and you work through all the workshops. So that's great for people who can't step away from their desk, say it's a new job or they've got a huge matter on. They can do that of an evening. And that one is all online, so you can just do that from the office after work or from home. And we've got over 150 intakes a year. So you can start with us when you're ready. You can take a little break after uni. You can, finish uni, have Christmas break, start in January. You can start right away. But if you just miss an intake, you don't have to worry. It's not like you have to wait a whole semester till the next one. We have dates happening all throughout the year. And when we sort of get a bit of demand, we do put on an extra one. These dates on the 29th of August, for example, in Queensland, we're doing an online version and a blended version, part-time and full-time, and that's an additional date we've had to add because of demand, which is great. So here are the different locations you can do your face-to-face workshops. So you can see that New South Wales has four locations. Victoria's got 2 locations. Queensland, because we're very geographically spread out, has got all those locations. Western Australia's got a couple of different locations at some of the different universities. And then we also teach in ACT, Northern Territory and South Australia. So those are all the different locations, apart from online, of course, so if you're not near any of those, you would do the online offering. Okay, well, I think it's time for me to take a little break and hand over to my colleague, Marko, who's going to talk you through, we love this explanation. This is how we think about PLT in the 3 course pillars. So over to you, Marko, to explain exactly what is entailed in those 3 course pillars.
And thanks very much, Jacqui. And all of you are actually very lucky to be hearing from Jacqui at the beginning. And we actually set it up that way so she does most of the talking. And the reason being is Jacqui's been in her role for quite some time. She's very experienced. She knows a lot about the PLT. She knows a lot of students. She's great engaging and interacting with them. And luckily, all that good stuff from Jacqui's rubbed off on me, and I've been learning a lot from her. So thanks for that, Jacqui. So I've started with the college November last year. But I myself did do the PLT back in 2010. I know that's a long time ago. It certainly is a BC, as very eloquently put by Jacqui before COVID. But, that experience that you have with the PLT stays with you for the rest of your life. So that was really instrumental for transitioning me from a law student to a lawyer. And that's why the PLT is so important to you, because it really is practice focused. It's based on practical skills. And there's not really that theory you have in your university law degree, which you do now. And that's important as well for building the foundations. But the PLT is really there to take you to become a lawyer. So that's what I'll get into now, is how our coursework, how our PLT program itself is designed to emulate what lawyers do in actual legal practice. And so our PLT program is based on 3 course pillars. And the first 2, coursework and work experience, they're mandatory. Every single PLT provider in Australia must meet those 2 requirements. So wherever you go to do your PLT, you'll certainly be doing coursework and work experience. But what's very unique to the college, but it's also really based on what lawyers do in actual practice, because that's what the College of Law is all about, is our continuing professional education component. I'll get to explain that a little bit later in the end of this part of the presentation. But what I wanted to say now is all lawyers are required to undertake continuing professional education in order to maintain their practicing certificate. And they have to do this on an annual basis. And because that's what lawyers do, this is why it's part of our PLT program, because the college's PLT is all about emulating lawyers in actual legal practice. Now, Jacqui has control over the slides, so I'm going to have to say, please, Jacqui, or something like that for her to move on. But we might start, Jacqui, with the next slide, please. So for this part of the presentation, I'm first going to focus on the coursework itself, and then I'll move on to work experience and continuing professional education. So very much like what you have right now in university with your online learning portals, the college also has its own online learning management system called Canvas. And once you enroll with the college's PLT, you get access to this online learning management system. And it contains a wealth of resources. So it'll be in some ways very similar with your current university online learning portal. So you'll get access to reading materials, you get access to video guides and tutorials. And also, very importantly, you're going to get access to all of these template documents that lawyers use in actual legal practice. And we call them practice papers. They were developed by our college lawyers, and they're embedded within the PLT now. So that'll include things like draft wills, draft contracts, draft leases, draft court documents, and letters of advice to clients, templates that are going to be useful for you. So once you're enrolled and you get access to the online learning management system before you actually start your coursework, you're able to review everything and prepare. And Jacqui was quite correct when she pointed out that through the coursework, you're going to do a lot of fun activities. And I'll get a chance to explain that shortly. But essentially, the way we set up our coursework at the college is we start with the learning process. So you get access to these online learning materials, and then we put you into the full swing of things where you start practicing the day-to-day things that lawyers do, which is embedded in the coursework, so you can master the day-to-day of what lawyers actually do. And Jacqui's pointed out that for your very first week, you participate in this intensive 1-week workshop, the Lawyer Skills Week. To me, this is the funnest part of the PLT because it's what I experienced myself as well. In this 1-week intensive, you get to do a lot of fun role-playing activities that lawyers do in actual practice. So you do client interviewing, negotiation, dispute resolution, advocacy. You'll also have the opportunity to do risk management workshop, a workshop on ethics and professional responsibility, and we even have one on well-being because that's very topical and relevant today. Now, what I get to do as part of what I see with the PLT, and Jacqui and I and other relationship managers from the other states get to participate as well, so we go to all these law student competitions. We can host them or we can attend them. And so we're always seeing law students participating in client interviewing competitions, negotiations, moots, you name it. All of that is building the foundations for what they're eventually going to do in the PLT. But at the PLT, it's just going to be at a slightly higher level because it's going to have a lot more direction and review from senior lawyers throughout the entire process. But what I want to say to that is, even when you're doing the competitions at university, you're building those roadblocks to what you'll eventually do at the PLT. As Jacqui pointed out, you're building the boat, but it's really where you learn to sail the boat through our coursework and through the PLT itself, because you get to do all these fun activities that really build upon the skills that lawyers have in actual legal practice. And so you'll do that 1 week intensive. It's 9 to 5. It emulates a typical workday. and then you move on to the online coursework to do on your own time, exactly as Jacqui's described. And as part of that coursework, you'll do a lot of cool things like drafting court documents, drafting letters of advice to clients, reviewing wills, leases, contracts, etc. And what's going to be very important is what I'm going to discuss shortly is that invaluable feedback in the one-on-one review sessions you have with your PLT supervisors. It's a lot more intimate than what you have typically at university, and I'll get to the reasons why. So Jacqui, if I can ask you to move on to the next slide, please. So as Jacqui pointed out, and as I'm focusing on as well, the PLT is all about your practical skills. So when we look at the first two headings there, skills for real life and master the day-to-day, that's what I've already addressed. The fact that our PLT program emulates what lawyers do in actual legal practice. But it's not just in terms of the work you do, in terms of the activities and the submissions, it's also in relation to how you get feedback. The way we at the college deliver feedback to our students is the way senior lawyers deliver feedback to junior lawyers. And I'll use me as an example as well, just because I've been through that process. So right now at university, you're getting feedback that's usually based on grades. You know, you get an A, B, C, D, or whatever the case may be. We don't do that at the college. That's not what the PLT is about. It's about constructive feedback and in a supportive environment, exactly as Jacqui pointed out. And that constructive feedback emulates what senior lawyers give to junior lawyers in actual practice. And the reason you're going to get that is because all of our PLT lecturers are senior lawyers when it comes to this type of information in the coursework. When you do something like the well-being session of the skills week, you'll get someone that's a specialist in that area. But for the purposes of the coursework itself, all senior lawyers. So I'll use me as an example to illustrate what you can expect as a PLT student at the college. So let's say as part of your coursework, you're asked to prepare a letter of advice to the client. So I've done plenty of those as a lawyer. And I remember as a junior lawyer, I'd prepare something and I'd hand it to the senior associate. And the senior associate would be the senior lawyer reviewing it. And the senior associate might say, Marko, you did a good job on this, but you need to explore this further. Can you go back and make those amendments and changes? So I'd make changes, I'd make amendments, and I'd give it back to the senior associate, who, when it was ready to go, would give it the final tick of approval, and then it would go to the partner. But the senior associate never said, Marko, you failed. You know, I never got that. It was like, this is your current level of understanding, and this is where you need to go. This is the further research you do. So when you're having these, when you're getting your feedback from the PLT lecturers, it'll be very similar to that. They'll say, you've done a great job on this. Maybe you need to touch upon this, or maybe you've done such a wonderful job, there's nothing else to do. But any feedback you get is going to be valuable. It's going to be helpful. It's going to be constructive. It's going to prepare you for the kind of feedback you're going to get in actual legal practice. But again, in a very supportive and safe environment. And so after you get this feedback from your PLT supervisors, you also have an opportunity to have one-on-one independent review sessions with them. And you'll have at least 6 throughout your PLT experience. And that's just in relation to the different areas of coursework that we have. And the great thing about these one-on-one review sessions is they're really constructive conversations. So you're going to have an opportunity to make time with your PLT supervisor, time that suits you both. It may be in person or it may be online. And you'll sit down and you'll have a conversation, a chat. And it emulates the kind of conversations senior lawyers have with junior lawyers when it comes to understanding a file, its status, and progressing it. So your PLT supervisor may say, okay, tell me about what you understand about this area of the coursework. So let's say it's commercial and corporations law. And they may ask you a few questions just to see, again, gauge your level of understanding. And they may say, look, I want to give you this hypothetical scenario. Imagine a client walks through the door. This is their issue. How would you advise them? So this is a great way for you to reflect back on everything you've been studying and preparing and all the work you've been doing, all that practical work before the review session, and then to know that you have the confidence and competence to give this mock advice to a mock client. And the great thing about your PLT supervisors, they'll be listening to what you say and giving you feedback at the same time. And this is exactly, again, what junior lawyers have in terms of their experience with senior lawyers when it comes to talking about files. So that was with me. I would get a file brought to my desk. Let's say that was the day in the physical paper files. and my supervisor would be the partner that was responsible for the team, say, Marko, here you go on your desk. It's a new file that we've just opened up. It's passed all the conflict checks. I need you to review it and come see me in 30 minutes and tell me what we're going to do. So it'd be obviously related to the area of practice I was involved in at the time. So I'd have enough familiarity with it, but I would still have only 30 minutes to review the file and go see the boss. You'll get a lot more time than that, thankfully. But it's the same concept of understanding the file, understanding the nature of the practice area, and then giving advice. And this is the best learning tool you'll ever have because it is so practical based. You're not writing an assignment, you're actually giving legal advice. Even if it's mock, it's as if you're talking to your lawyer about what you need to, your senior lawyer about what you need to do with progressing a file. So this is where Jacqui and I really like to stress that point that this is all about real world tests and not old school theory, exactly as Matt has given us feedback about, and as Jacqui and I have been talking about earlier. Jacqui, I might move on to the next slide, please. So I've just spent some time talking to you about the coursework itself, and I want to move on to the work experience component. Now, work experience is fundamental to your professional training and development. But at the same time, at the college, we recognize that some students have competing obligations, and it may make it more difficult for them to meet the work experience requirements. For that reason, we have 3 very flexible options. And what I'll do is I'll first start by talking about our standard option because it's the most popular. And it's the most popular for a reason, and I think you'll be able to appreciate it once I explain it. So that first option is 75 days work placement. As I said, this is mandatory for all PLT providers. Work experience is really fundamental to your professional training and growth. And this is why we treat it so very seriously at the college. But if you've got any previous work experience for up to 2 years before you actually start the PLT, and that work experience could be, let's say, as a paralegal or as a litigation as assistant, something like that, where you touch a file, you work on a file, not as a lawyer, but you assist lawyers with it. Well, all of that experience you have before you enroll in the PLT actually counts towards that 75 days. So let me give you an example now. Maybe you're working as a legal assistant or a paralegal now, and you want to enroll in the PLT, let's say it's for August next year. Well, you're going to be working potentially 1 day a week, maybe 2, maybe 3. But all of those days that you work, it's going to accumulate to the point that when you're ready to roll into PLT, you'll just tell the College of Law, look, I've been working as a paralegal or legal assistant for a year. I've got at least 60 days of work experience, and I'd like to claim that towards that 75 days. And you would just get approval from your supervisor that's helped you out. There's some paperwork to sign, and we have online forms. But essentially, your supervisor would sign off and say, you did this work as a legal assistant or paralegal. And then instead of doing the full 75 days, you might end up just doing 15 days. And this is the wonderful thing about our standard option. And the vast majority of students who enrolled in our PLT, when we hear feedback from them, they say they already have previous work experience, or they're enrolled in a graduate program with one of Australia's leading national or international law firms. As Jacqui's pointed out, more than 30 law firms exclusively trust the College of Law to train their graduates in PLT. So for that reason, it's the most popular one. And if I can ask you, Jacqui, just to pop to the next slide, and we'll come back to this one right afterwards. But to give you an example of all the kind of work experience that counts towards work placement, perhaps you've done some clerkships before you the PLT. That counts towards that 60 days. Or again, you've worked as a legal assistant or paralegal. If you volunteer at a community legal center, that applies as well in legal aid. Perhaps you do some government policy and planning work, or maybe you're assisting barristers in chambers, or perhaps you're going to do what I did when I first finished uni. I worked as a judge's associate. So I did that for a year, but I was a judge's, before I signed up for the PLT, I'd worked with the judge for a couple of months. And so I had all of this work experience before I commenced the PLT that I was able to claim towards my own work experience when I did the PLT back in 2010. So this is why I was talking about the fact that that 75 days may seem a lot, but if you've got any work experience at all that's relevant to a file like any of these that I've just described, you can claim those days of work experience towards that 75 days, and perhaps you just do the 15. Jacqui, if you don't mind just going back to the work experience. So this is why it's such a popular option with our students and applies to the vast majority of them. But as we've been speaking about earlier, particularly Jacqui focusing on this, we're all about flexibility at the college. And so in case you have other very important life commitments, maybe you're a primary caregiver, maybe you have a full-time job in a non-legal role, and all of these factors may make it difficult for you to meet the work placement requirements. And so we have these two other options available for you. So the first one is the clinical experience module. This is where there's only 15 days of actual work experience that you need. But because you're missing out on that very important hands-on practical experience that you would get from those additional 60 days as part of the PLT, otherwise, we ask you to undertake an additional 6-week online program. And again, this 6-week online program will be over and above what you're doing as part of the standard PLT, but again, practice focused, all about practical skills that lawyers use in actual legal practice. Now, if you are in WA, it's slightly different. It'll be 25 days instead of 15 days, and it'll be 5-week online program instead of 6. But for the other states, this 15 days with 6 weeks online is the standard procedure. And now our other third option is called the in-practice component. This is very unique. It came about as a result of COVID. This is where all the regulators across Australia that are responsible for regulating the PLT said, look, students might have a difficult time getting work experience during lockdown, so we need to give them another option. And so they came up with this idea of the in-practice component. And the way it works at the college is there's no actual days of work experience, but in lieu of that, you do an additional 8-week online program, and you get one-on-one mentoring sessions with the senior lawyer. So again, we do our best to emulate what you would be doing as a junior lawyer in legal practice, even if you have to do it in an online format and where you can't be in an office or in that work environment that you would otherwise be in that's related to legal work. And Jacqui, I think that's about it for me talking about the work experience. We do have a work experience guide, and I think Ellen's going to very helpfully put that onto our chat box as well, or at least give you a link to it. So if you recall, I mentioned that every single PLT provider has to, as part of their program, provide coursework and the work experience component. But this is where the college comes in to be very unique in our continuing professional education component. As I mentioned earlier, all lawyers that have practicing certificates that want to renew it every year have to undertake 10 hours of continuing professional education. So for me as a lawyer, I'll have to do things like ethics, trust accounting, blah, 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 various things like that. But you as students in our PLT program, you don't have to worry about some of those boring things that I have to do as part of my continuing professional education. You get to have a lot more fun because the college's continuing professional education is focused on what's relevant to lawyers now in terms of all the latest emerging trends in the legal profession, very much focused on legal tech and business skills. So legal technology is underpinning a huge revolution in the way lawyers practice law, and that's why it's so important. And at the same time, lawyers do need business skills. You may have great and excellent technical legal skills, but when you progress through your career and you're dealing with clients and you want to have your own clients and you want to manage your own legal practice in the future, you need those business skills. So we're going to give them to you early on in preparation. So you undertake these 10 hours of self-paced online interactive modules. You can do them at any time as part of the PLT experience. And then once you finish, you get an additional certificate of legal tech and business. This is wonderful. This is proof to employers that you've undertaken additional studies and you get additional practical focused interactive modules about what's so important in today's legal practice, legal tech and innovation. So again, add it to your resume, highlight it to your employers. Now, I think that's pretty much it for me, Jacqui, in terms of what I was going to talk about for this part of the presentation. If I can pass it back on to you to do some more.
Sure. Thanks, Marko. I'm just going to address a couple of questions that have come up. There's one about when you can start that I thought was actually quite relevant. I think a lot of people might be thinking the same thing. Most people do finish their law degrees and then move on to practical legal training. However, if you would like to start slightly early while you're still at uni, yes, indeed, you can do that. Now, you need to have completed your core subjects. So that's what's called Priestley 11. Now, cannot list what those subjects are because they're different at different universities. They've all got different names. But if you go onto your law your law school website, you'll find a list of what the core subjects or what the Priestley 11 subjects are at your university. Once you've completed those Priestley 11 subjects and have no more than 2 electives left, you may apply to the admitting body in your state to start practical legal training early. Now, it is very strictly just 2 electives. I have had a student say, but I've got 3, is that all right? No, these rules are not set by the College of Law. They're set by the LAC, which is a committee of, it's Legal Admissions Consultative Committee, committee of senior people within the professions of judges and ex-judges and those sorts of people that make the rules. So, but you can indeed, if you meet those rules, apply for permission, start when you finish your Priestley 11 with no more than 2 subjects to go. If you have done some work experience, now that work experience does have to be in the 2 years before you start PLT. Older work experience unfortunately doesn't count. Again, these are rules made by the LAC. You can fill out some forms. Now, Ellen might pop the link, or Marko, you might pop it in the chat. It's collaw, collaw.edu.au/downloads, which is kind of a place where you can download all the information that you need. You will then fill out the application for work experience form, and then also the declaration of for work experience. Now, the first one is just to say, hi college, this is where I'm doing / have done, if it's retrospective work experience, and this is who will be supervising me, and that person is a lawyer themselves. Now, if you are in the public service, potentially they don't have a practicing certificate, but read through the rules. That's usually still allowed, because some government departments don't have to have practicing certificates. When you finish up to your 60 days, if it's before you start a PLT, you can then sign the declaration to say, hey college, I've finished, and then your supervisor would sign that form along with yourself as well. It does need to be the same person all the way through, because it's the person, not the organisation, signing you off. Now, even if you're not coming to us for a full year, but you have done those 60 days, you can this weekend go and download those forms, and we'll probably get them signed on Monday and then scan them back to us early next week, and we'll keep those on file for you. You don't have to worry about the first 60 days until you start, and then you start PLT, and then you do the remaining 15 days while you're here. Yes, you can do some of those, the first 60 days overseas. The final 15 that you do while you're doing PLT must be done in Australia, anywhere in Australia. So if you're on a border somewhere, so some people, to give a Queensland example, might live down at the Tweed. They live on one side of the border, they work on the other side of the border. It doesn't matter where you do. So say if you're living in Melbourne and you get an opportunity to go to Sydney and do some work experience, take that work experience. It doesn't matter which state that work experience is in. So Ellen's responding to all of the other questions that are coming through. But let's move on.
Sorry, Jacqui, to interrupt, but I want to thank everyone for asking those questions. And this is why I repeat that Jacqui's running the show, and I'm getting to participate with her, because Jacqui's been doing this for a while, so she really knows what she's talking about. And everything that Jacqui's just mentioned can be backed up in the documents that you're able to read. But it's very important that you do look at that information and just make sure you know what you can claim, because you want to claim as much as you can before you start your PLT. So that way you do less when you're actually enrolled in the PLT. And one thing you're definitely going to need to do a lot as a lawyer, much as you do as a law student, is research. But
and fill out forms.
Jacqui. And forms. That's right.
Now, if you'd like to talk about your specific circumstance, just call through to our student services team or get in touch with Marko and myself. Now, we can't say, oh, yes, that'll count, or no, that won't count. You actually do need to officially put it on a form and have it assessed. And that goes through, if there's sort of any doubt, goes through to our work experience committee, who might ask you for further information. So if in doubt, just get it assessed and we can have a look at it for you. I did have one more thing to say, but I can't remember. Well, one important thing to mention, Marko, is that you don't have to work for the same employer for those 75 days.
That's correct.
So you need to sort of do a set of forms, like the beginning and the end form for each, but you could have a placement for 20 days here and then go and do 30 days here and then do the remainder of the third firm. So it doesn't have to be at the same employer, and it doesn't have to be 75 days in a row. You can sort of do a bit here, a bit there, and a bit there. But as long as the work experience meets the rules are available on our website at that downloads page, collaw.edu.au/downloads, and you have the correct forms, and it's all signed off appropriately. So we'll leave that. If you have any questions about your unique situation, you can certainly get in contact with our student services team, or with Marko or myself, and we can give you some further information. Okay, so we talked about all the support that you get at the College of Law. So here are some of the people that will support you and sort of mentor you through the whole process. And that starts now before you even are enrolled at the College of Law. We have a wonderful team of, I think we're calling it client services team now. And we have student liaison officers that work within that team that are there to answer all your questions about the nuts and bolts of the program before you start and during the program as well. So people are asking some questions, Marko. If they enroll in the week-to-week intensive workshops and then something comes up with work, or they get sick, or they have to go overseas, what happens with those days? Well, you would contact our student services team and say, look, I'm not able to come for Tuesday, and they would arrange for that to be done at a different time. In Queensland, I can tell you what we do. We sort of manage that locally at a state level. And there's a couple of different rules. You have to do the advocacy days as a pair. So at the moment we do advocacy, we just changed it on a Thursday and a Friday. So if you can't come for just Thursday, then you would have to take Thursday and Friday. And what we do is just say, hey, because we have so many programs, the next week that we're running is in a month, you'll have to come back and do Thursday, Friday, or the Tuesday or whatever day at that time. But yes, you can sort of split it between weeks. If something happens, and with people getting sick with the flu and COVID and all sorts of different things at the moment, we'll certainly do that a lot. But in the first instance, if you're not sure who to contact, you can contact your lecturer or your local College of Law, whatever state you're in, or you can go through to our student services team. If you've fallen behind a bit and you need help catching up, talk to your lecturers, talk to your student services team. If you need to reschedule an assessment, you talk to our student services team, and they're great. If you've just got questions, just ring through, send an email, and they will give you further information. And then, of course, when you're doing...
Sorry, Jacqui, if I could just add a little bit more. My apologies, because you've raised something that's so important that I thought I'd shared as well in terms of something I've seen with the College Victoria with students and flexibility. So again, we always go back to this flexibility at the college, and also that we're here to support you. So I know one of our college ambassadors from Victoria, she had completed her legal studies, her university degree, and had enrolled in the PLT with us here in Victoria. And then within her first week during the skills week, unfortunately, one of her relatives overseas, a very close relative, was sick to the point where it was, I think, a terminal illness. So she had to stop doing the PLT and go to visit her sick relative overseas. And that took a couple of months. And during that time frame, she was constantly in contact with our enrollment team, with the lecturers that she had, just to talk about getting the course transferred or doing some of the coursework later. And it turned out so well for her. She got all the support she needed. Things were delayed. I don't know the full ins and outs, but what I can say, she had such a great experience with it. She found the college team to be so supportive that afterwards, she's now become one of our ambassadors here in Victoria, and she loves to volunteer to help me deliver PLT presentations to students, where she gives some of this feedback about the excellent and exceptional level of support she received from the College of Law when she had to deal with that issue. So I'm fairly certain that the rules we have here in Victoria, very similar, Jacqui, to Queensland, maybe some nuances, but the point is, wherever you are in any state or territory in Australia and you're undertaking the PLT with us, you're going to get support from your support team anytime you need it.
Absolutely, and that's what we're here for. And don't suffer in silence. And sort of, we talked about in one of our sessions for Careers Academy last night, regarding risk, and it's the different subject, but same principle. Don't shove it in your top drawer and not think about it and hope it'll go away. Reach out, tell someone, ask for help, and there's so much support available for you that we'll be able to work out a plan on a case-by-case basis. Trust me, if it's happening to you, it potentially is not the first time we've dealt with it. So yes, you have to go to court, you're sick, you have to go overseas for whatever reason. It's happened before, we can deal with it. But please just communicate and let us know whether you're talking to your lecturer, your local College of Law, or our student services team. Just reach out. And throughout the course, of course, you do have a fabulous, you'll have a mentor assigned to your cohort. That's your first point of contact. So you'll encounter lots of our different teaching staff throughout the course, and they are there to work with you to get you through the program and provide you with that individual feedback that Marko talked about, and to help keep your learning on track. So that's a great first point of contact. If you're like, oh, I'm a little bit behind, what can I, how am I going to get through this? My child is sick, I'm sick, work's busy, I can't submit that task on Wednesday. What can I do? Oh, okay, that's no problem. They can just extend that till maybe after the weekend. So there's always things that we can do to help you get through. We also have a fabulous team of career coaches as well. That's Susan on the screen, and we also have, we're lucky enough to have her colleague Ruth as well. So Susan works 3 days, Ruth works 2, and there's always one of them available to support students across Australia. So they do help you with interview prep, resume reviews, building your personal brand, so they can work with you one-on-one. And once you're a College of Law student, you can book in to see them for a career coaching session. I think between the two of them, they did over 500 or nearly 600 or something like that this financial year just gone, so in 12 months. But they also run a whole lot of free webinars to prepare you to be employed as well, to prepare you to sort of hit the profession, full guns blazing. Those are free, and they are open to university students as well. So you might have attended some, you might have seen some advertised. I'd really encourage you to follow the College of Law on Facebook or LinkedIn, and you'll see those sessions advertised. And if you can't attend live, much like Careers Academy, you'll get the recording afterwards. And they do some fabulous things. So some really good topics, and I'm sure that you'll find a lot of them really interesting. And then, of course, we have a jobs board. So we're always getting contacted by people wanting to employ PLT students or PLT graduates. And to keep that open and transparent and equitable for everyone, we pop that up on a jobs board that you can access, and you can view the jobs by state, and then you'll apply straight through to the person advertising the job. We also have, obviously, huge alumni, and we do different states do different alumni events. So you'll hear about those ones directly, depending on what state that you're in as well. So lots of support. Don't suffer in silence. Reach out to the different channels of support, and we are here to get you through the program and support you. And we'll just answer your questions. Sometimes you just need to ask a question and get some information. So just to chat through a few, reiterate a few points. As we've mentioned, over 30 law firms trust the College of Law to exclusively train their graduates. But not just those law firms, we've got graduates from mid-tiers, small firms, sort of sole traders, government agencies, pretty much any in-house lawyers, pretty much any legal role, heaps of judges associates, as Marko mentioned, any legal role that you can imagine, they're doing their practical legal training at the College of Law. I think that's on average 77% of law students across Australia. Sort of the specific percentage in each state might differ, but that's averaged out across Australia. So if you do move states, chances are you're working with people who've also been trained by the College of Law in a different state. We're coming up to 49 years experience, I think that is now. We might need to update our slide. And we've been training lawyers. Obviously, PLT has been in some iteration around since, I think, the 1990s, early 2000s, but we've been training lawyers, whatever that looks like, since 1974. I was just a wee young lass at that time. So that's a long time ago. So we've been training lawyers, and that's why the College of Law exists, just to train lawyers. That is our reason for breathing and existing. So that's what the College of Law does. So again, it's all about doing it your way. We talked about all the different decisions you've got to make: part-time, full-time, evening course, online, blended. And then the different work experience options as well. So the PLT program, a great question that people often ask is, how much does it cost? $9,640 for Australian citizens and permanent residents. There's fee help available. So that's much like what you've used at university, but fee help is the name for it when it's a postgraduate qualification, which is what the Graduate Diploma of Legal Practice is. Or international students, it's $13,910. So it's not anything nasty like double, which is really great. Though that's for the coursework. Now, again, it's all about doing it how it suits you. If you choose to do the short format for whatever option, the clinical experience module is an extra subject. You add 1,460 for that, but in Western Australia, it's 1,530 because it's 1 week shorter. Now, that program does have a start date and a finish date, but it's much like the rest of the course. It doesn't have lectures or time to be online. You work through the work that you've got to do for that across those 5 weeks. So it's not really part-time or full-time. It's literally just do it within those 5 weeks. Obviously, if you go longer, you won't get it signed off till after it's all submitted, but there's no face-to-face component for that. You're working through, actually, no, there's some workshops, isn't there? Sorry. It's Friday afternoon, but you're working through some work that's got to be submitted, and you're doing it within that time frame. But essentially, there's not like an intensive workshop week or anything for that. So it's not like that. So that's the clinical experience module. At the moment, the IPC option is available. Now, this is available in all states. It's the 8-week program, and that's an additional $2,000. Now, you might have seen in the small print on the other slide, I just did want to mention it, Marko, that at the moment that's finishing at the end of the year. But watch this space. We don't know if it will or won't go ahead after that date. That's all governed by the Chief Justices and the admitting bodies in each state. So they might turn around and say, we're going to extend it for another 6 months. But at this time, what we can tell you that it's definitely going ahead until the end of the year. But if you're looking to come and do PLT next year, it may or may not be available. So just don't sort of bank on it if it is after 2022. So it's sort of, one of those fluid situations, but for COVID. Some really interesting numbers that came out of 2021. So I guess this data is nearly a year old now. So it'll be interesting to see it for 2022 shortly. Over 180 courses were run at the College of Law in 7 Australian states and territory. We assisted over 5,000 students to enter the profession across Australia, so that's quite exciting. We delivered face-to-face. We had 19 local locations for face-to-face when they could go ahead. Ruth and Susan did 425 career consultations last year, but in this last 12 months, it was actually way over, I think it's more like 550. So that service is increasing its demand, which is great. And we had about 277 qualified senior lawyers across the profession, across Australia, mentoring our students as lecturers. So that's really exciting that we have that much input from the profession. We hosted over 11 free career seminars with 31 guest speakers. I reckon it's heaps more this year. Over 1,000 jobs were advertised across Australia on our jobs board. And we celebrated 6 years with the Centre for Legal Innovation, and Marko's going to talk about that further. And we also do the prep course for admission into the UK. There was a session done on that on Tuesday, so you will actually get the recording for that if you'd like further information. And one thing to mention, if you graduate from our College of Law Practical Legal Training course, and you're looking at some stage down the track to do a very practical master's program, you will give you 2 credits towards that. So at 8 subject masters become 6, and you can very comfortably do that 1 subject at a time in 18 months. So that's quite exciting, but that's a conversation for another day as well. Now, Marko, We both love the Centre for Legal Innovation, but would you like to share a little bit more information about this?
Absolutely, and thank you so much for that, Jacqui. It is, for the college, this is such an important initiative we have, and I think we love to highlight it to students because, as I mentioned earlier, the future of the law is really being underpinned by legal technology. So it's important you have some awareness, and it's important you get some background in it, because it's just revolutionizing so much of the way law is conducted in the professional sphere, but also in the academic sphere for the future as well. So when we talk about the Center of Legal Innovation, it's sort of a focused think tank at the College of Law. It has college staff, but also we get assistance from lawyers, from legal tech startups, and from law firms. Not everyone's a lawyer. Some of them are technology specialists with backgrounds in IT. We have a wealth of resources that are available to you online. That's videos and podcasts. We even have this really cool thing called the Legalpreneurs Lab. So just think entrepreneur, but legalpreneur is the way we focus on it, is because it's for law students and it's for lawyers. And this is a space for people who are collaborative and they're looking for a community and they want to work together to reinvent, innovate, and transform legal practice. But the best part of all of this is it's free for you as students. You just sign up, you get access to all these wonderful resources while you're a student, and then you get to learn more about what's going on in the legal profession in this very important sphere of legal tech and innovation. But the main point that Jacqui and I want to get across about the Center of Legal Innovation and why it's one of the things that's been highlighted by College of Law is the fact that the skills that the college delivers to you, that you get as part of practical legal training, but even if you move on to do a master's at some time down the track, all the skills you get through the college are going to be relevant to you today, but also well into the future, because the College of Law is looking to future-proof you. We're at the very forefront of all the significant changes and latest emerging trends in the legal profession, particularly as it relates to legal tech and innovation. So you can be very well rest assured that if you enroll in our PLT program, you'll excel today and well into the future. And if you could please move on to the next slide. Thank you, Jacqui. And so what Jacqui and I have been trying to do our best to show to you is all of these flexible options that you have at the College of Law. And we want you to know the choice really is yours when you come to the College of Law about how you want to engage with us as part of your learning experience. You can do 100% online or blended learning program. You can do full-time or part-time. And then when it comes to work experience, you have the two options available for you. That standard option of 75 days, whereas Jacqui very importantly highlighted, you get all this work experience that you've accumulated, not just from one employer, and maybe not just from Australia, as long as it's from another Commonwealth country. All of that is very well detailed and explained in that work experience guide. But if those options aren't right for you, that standard option, well, you have the two other flexible options. So it's all about you, your choices, what suits you best. That's what we're focused on. And Jacqui,
absolutely. And it's common law country, isn't it? I should have said that before. You have to have experience in a common law country. Absolutely. Great summary.
And what Jacqui did very importantly is at the beginning of the presentation, she pointed out that we collected feedback from students who'd completed the PLT. And we genuinely care about your experience. And we want to deliver the best and highest quality program that we can. An important part to do that is just to make sure we get feedback, frank and full, from our students. And one of the things that we've done is when we've been collating all of this evidence, we put together this presentation to tell you the four main areas that our PLT grads found were the highlight or the reasons why they chose to undertake our PLT. But we got so much information that we started thinking ourselves, well, if we were in the shoes going back in time, let's say of being a law student and wanting to do the PLT, what would we be looking for ideally right now? And Jacqui did such a great job of explaining it. And what we've done now is just distilled it here on this PowerPoint slide. But one of the things that always comes up is the regular intakes. So right now with your university studies, it's semester by semester. Well, with the PLT, it's month by month. Whether it's full-time or part-time, we always have a program intake for you every single month of the year. Again, study your way. You choose. Do you miss doing stuff face-to-face? We'll welcome you if you do. But if you prefer to stay online, well, then we'll stay online. And of course, regulations related to COVID will impact that, whether we can do face-to-face or whether it has to be completely online. But where we can offer those face-to-face courses for you, we certainly will. And you got to think about how long does it take to complete the program. So with your university degree, it's going to take some years. But with the PLT, the intention is that you'll be done well within 6 months. So if you're doing the full-time course, it's 15 weeks, and then you have to do the work experience component. But you may have been doing it while you're working as part of the coursework. You may have done a large portion of it before you even enroll in the PLT. But what that all means is by the time you get everything done, it's usually well within 6 months. You're not here for 3 years. You're going to be here for less than a year. And then if you want to really get a good gauge of what are the benefits of undertaking the PLT, speak to the lawyers that you may be working with right now, or speak to some of your friends who have already graduated from university and are doing the PLT now, or they're working as lawyers. Ask them about their experience doing the PLT. And if they did it with the College of Law, say, I attended this PLT presentation. Jacqui and Marko were talking about all of these factors that are important and the benefits of being in the college's PLT. Does that resonate with you? So always get a little bit of background information. As we mentioned, the most important thing for you now as law students and also as lawyers is that research. So we encourage you strongly to do your research. And also very importantly, because it's not the case with every single PLT provider, but you certainly get this with the College of Law. Do you have a local campus? Do you get local content? And do you get local practitioners? So within each jurisdiction in Australia, you're going to have some laws that are uniform that apply everywhere. For example, family law. But criminal law is not the same in Queensland as it is in New South Wales or as it is in Victoria. There's always differences. And so it's important to know that where you're undertaking your PLT is if that's where you want to practice, you're going to get local practitioners in a local campus telling you about what that law is like in your local state or territory. So definitely something to keep in mind and have, again, as part of your research into which PLT is the most suitable for you, these are some of the factors we think you should be considering, and hopefully it's going to be helpful to you. And we might move on to the next slide, Jacqui.
Absolutely. That's if you have your phones handy, you want to grab, that's our QR code to our handbook with lots of information. However, we have already arranged for this to be included in the follow-up email that you'll get after Careers Academy. So don't worry if you haven't had time to do it. We'll get that guide to you. It is also available from our website. So just if you have managed to snap it, then you'll be able to check it out this afternoon. Keep in contact with the College of Law. We have so much stuff happening. We have workshops. We had Careers Academy this week. Obviously, you all found out about it somehow. But connect with us on Facebook, on Instagram, on LinkedIn. I probably think that Facebook and LinkedIn are the two best places for sort of what's happening. So all those free career workshops that Susan and Ruth run, events happening locally in your own state, things happening nationally online that you can get involved with as well. So it's a really great way to find out more about the profession and sort of what's happening and how we can support you as well. So follow us on Facebook. I'd love to invite you to connect with me and Marko as well. I have had quite a few connections during this hour, so thank you very much to everyone who's done that. And if you'd like further information about the program, it's available on our website at collaw.edu.au/PLT. So feel free to jump on there this afternoon and research a bit more information as well. So this is the last slide that I've got. That's my LinkedIn and that's Marko's LinkedIn. And we've been really thrilled to have you here for the hour. Thanks for all your questions. I know that Ellen has been furiously typing all the responses to you. She'll make sure that our team go through that on Monday just to check that there wasn't any that we missed, because there was quite a lot of questions in the chat box, which is absolutely great. So we'll make sure that everything's answered. So signing off. Thank you, Marko. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. Thank you, Ellen, in the chat box. She's been a very busy lady. And please get in contact with us if you have any further questions. But we really do look forward to welcoming you, each and every one of you, to the College of Law, to practical legal training when it is your time. So have a great weekend, everyone. Keep warm, keep safe, and we look forward to seeing you at the College of Law very, very soon. So thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. All the best. Take care.